Iran made a deal with the United States, all of the, various Arab countries, as well as Israel, to play ball and to get involved economically. So we're talking about a financial arrangement with what's going to be the Ben Gurion Canal and also the pipeline going through Gaza. So Iran was playing a double game back at the time of the genocide of the Palestinians. They were, on the one hand, arming and defending the Palestinians. On the other hand, they were making a deal, a business deal, to get involved in the Ben Gurion Canal and the pipeline, because this is going to change the face of business in the Middle East and really change a lot of economic futures for that area, as well as the United States and probably China and Russia. Now, when you look at China, China is behind Iran. So they are going back many years, allies. And China is quite dependent on Iranian oil, and et cetera. And one can imagine that they're also donating technical expertise in exchange for Iran getting their protection in the event of a world war, let's say. So when we're looking at the playing field, it's important to realize that when you're dealing with Iran, you're actually dealing with China. So when Trump is dealing with Iran, he knows he's dealing with China. I think that whenever you're looking at the Middle East, whenever you're looking at anything that goes on globally in this world, you need to start pulling back the lens and encompassing more than just the little playground here on Earth, but the surrounding echelons of ETs that are also attendant on what's happening, and realize that Israel is run by the Anunnaki. This is all throughout history, in the ancient writings, and so forth, in the Enki Enlil stories that Zacharias Sitchin, among other people, translated from the Sumerian tablets, and so on. So with that in mind, whenever you're dealing with Israel, you're dealing with the Anunnaki. And I really wish that would become commonplace understanding around the world, so that we can stop focusing on Israel so much as really it's a country, and it is under the beck and call of the Anunnaki. And that is because their bloodline most closely resembles, I imagine, the Anunnaki. But it doesn't mean that they are in charge of what they do. So if you focus on the Anunnaki and you focus on how Trump is trying to balance the relationships between two factions, one is the Anunnaki and the other is the alien group that runs Iran. So there's no doubt that the group that runs Iran is not the same ET origins as the Anunnaki. Therefore, whether it's the Enki Enlil story or it's going beyond that, I'm not sure. What I can say is they do all feel like they are humanoid, possibly with reptilian heritage. So you're talking about an Anunnaki reptilian humanoid. So in both cases. And the bottom line is that I believe if you don't look at the New World Order and their plans for the entire planet, and then put this smaller war into that context, that you're going to miss the point. You're going to not understand where this is headed and why they're doing what they're doing. So back during the beginning of the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza by Israel, that's when the pipeline and the canal came to the fore. So we have the Ben Gurion Canal, and that's going to take some. What I am trying to do is counter the mainstream narrative, the narrative that even the alternative people, especially MAGA and various groups, are following and believing, when in fact it's not what's really happening. And they cannot decipher, other than through, some nice little Q posts, let's say, where this is going. So Q, we're putting some hints out there to keep the MAGA people kind of cool and feeling that they were thinking Trump is in charge and so on and so forth. But that in and of itself is a mode of placating that group, which is going to be very active and is very active behind the scenes and also in public, all the broadcasters out there and that sort of thing. So understanding the bigger picture and how that motivates the smaller turf fighting that's going on this planet, and where it needs to lead, where it's going to lead, whether you like it or not, eventually, is just worth knowing. And by the way, the more truth you are able to bring into your consciousness and your field, as they say, and the more you act according to that truth, the more it will set you free, even psychologically, emotionally, and help you to get through these days where, if you concentrate on just what's going on the ground, you get misled and you get pulled from one side to the other side and back and forth. And it's a tug of war. But it's very important that people understand that, again, you have to look at the situation with a longer term in mind. It is possible that, for example, the US may attack Iran, but it will be in ways that are, let's say, a limited hangout. It will not have to do with decimating. So, and both sides. Neither side wants to destroy the other. What they want is to move forward with this business deal that involves the Ben Gurion Canal and the remaking of the Middle East, a rebalancing with the countries involved, as well as the pipeline already being established by the exodus, let's call it, of the Palestinian people, as well as the genocide. So this is where you have to, once you start to bring these pieces in, then you can play your games with the Q things as well. They know what I'm talking about, but they never refer to it, actually. So that's a problem. And there's other problems that have to be changed. So when we have, let's say, if we ever have, the EBS, Electronic Broadcasting System announcements, the tribunals, the exposure of the 2020 election steal, the fact that Trump actually won, so that in a sense, he's owed 4 more years, even beyond what he's doing now, by the system, by virtue of the fact that he actually won and didn't get to play that out in theory. So you're looking at a lot of disclosures that are going to clear the playing field and change the balance of power in the world, not just in the Middle East, by the way. And so understanding, again, I can't stress it enough, that when you're dealing with Israel, you're dealing with the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki are also embedded in our main government. Bob Dean even referred to this. So they're also involved with England and the English government. And then you also have the more reptilian Nazi contingent that's also embedded the government's, the secret space program. Then you also have the Pleiadians. And by the way, there's reason to believe the Pleiadians and the Venusians are involved in counseling Trump and his group, as well as probably at least one inner Earth civilization. So this is a big deal because this is a changeover, a changing of the guard on Earth. And the changing of the guard, or the leadership, to get Iran on board more fully and not to be so isolated, is part of it. And then please keep in mind that the minute this so-called Third World War, which is really a staging ground for what comes next, as I have said in my previous interview. So as we move forward, when you want to analyze Trump's moves, you need to put them in this context. So one of the things he's doing is trying to take over the entire North American continent, and that includes Canada, Mexico and South America, Latin America, and so on, as well as Greenland, Iceland, and the North Pole area, because that's a very specific link to our inner Earth civilization contacts, as well as our military, lots of military establishments within that, going in through the northern entrance, as well as Antarctica, which is a whole nother ballgame that also is factored into this mix. So what the New World Order has been doing has been run by the dark side for a very long time, but we are in the middle of a transition. And so when you see Trump take certain actions, he is vying to be the leader of not just the North American continent, but probably the whole New World Order, his group. Okay, and Trump does not work alone at all. So understanding that any decisions made are not made unilaterally by an individual. What you have is the white hats, the generals, the 200 generals that put him in place, other players, some of which could even be from Israel. There's an understanding around the world by the people that are at the top that this one world order has to come into being. And they are trying to, I believe, negotiate with both sides. So they've got their side, and then they've got a group within them that are part of the Anunnaki and Illuminati, and they are sort of balancing things when it's advantageous to them. That's why Trump is also not that clear on his stance with regard to Iran, because they want Iran to be in the mix. They just need regime change so they can get with the more modern way of looking at the world and continue the business deal that they've already engaged in and make them part of the monetary system. So what is also at root here is the battle between monetary systems. So on the one hand, you have, because if you're going to run the world, you have to run it through finance also. So Trump and the QFS, as everyone knows about, and his group are obviously planning to release their financial system on the world that would free us from the Illuminati Rothschild financial system. But at the moment, it's still a battle. It hasn't been won, and this has gone back and forth. So then Earth has no unity by which to go forward. If we're all fighting among each other, then you can't go forward. So although obviously the Illuminati want to run the New World Order, but Trump is vying, and his his allies are vying to run the New World Order. So that's really what you have. There's no denying that we're going to have a new world order or a one world government that will be made up of groups that will hopefully be intelligent groups that will then basically lead to a way to negotiate with ET races in a more open way, because at the moment it's completely secret. Regular humans have no access whatsoever to any of the decisions they make for the planet, okay? And that just is not a good way to operate, obviously.